On the Amtrak train, I got up to use the restroom. When I came back, I found Ethan Hayes' intern sitting in my seat. They were sharing a pair of earbuds, staring at a tiny phone screen watching a dating reality show. The intern's eyes reddened as she listened to a contestant's confession. My boyfriend silently handed her a tissue. I stood there beside the two-seater, feeling utterly unnecessary. 3 minutes later, I texted Ethan to break up. Then I turned around, dragged my luggage, and walked to another car. Ethan had no idea we were on the same train, but heading for different destinations. 8 years together. And finally, we'd embarked on a journey apart. My 28-inch suitcase hit the floor with a heavy thud as I pulled it down from the overhead rack. I glanced back on instinct. Ethan was leaning in, listening intently to whatever Lila Moore was saying. I tightened my grip on the handle and kept walking toward the next car. It was 2 hours later when the seat beside me sank sharply under someone's weight. I turned and met Ethan's unruffled, complacent face. He pulled up our breakup text, his tone laced with his usual dismissiveness. "What's this supposed to mean? You mad? Just 'cause Lila sat in your seat for a minute?" I gave a non-committal hum. He tucked his phone away, looking mildly annoyed. "Fine. So when are you gonna take me back?" My gaze drifted to his ring finger. Our matching band was gone. "Ethan, I mean what I say." He snickered, unable to hold back a laugh. "Clara, come on. Lila just came over to show me a funny video." "You're really gonna break up over something this stupid?" I looked at him, my eyes going cold by degrees. "We've been together 8 years. This isn't nothing to me." A few weeks back, Imagine Dragons had come to Chicago for a concert. I'd fought tooth and nail to get 2 tickets. Ethan said he was swamped with work, had no time for silly distractions. But he'd sat through 2 whole hours of a brainless dating show with Lila, patient as can be. Ethan sighed softly. "You run off without a word every time you're upset. What are our friends gonna think? Lila's over there convinced she did something wrong. She's a wreck." It was almost funny. Even when I was breaking up with him, all he cared about was Lila's feelings. We'd planned to go to Savannah this long weekend to talk about our engagement with both families. Lila had happened to book a trip to Savannah too, so Ethan had invited her along. Lila wanted to see a live folk theater performance and visit the museums. So Ethan had filled his 3-day vacation with tourist spots. And somehow, he'd never carved out time for the 2 families to have dinner together. The AC in the car was cranked high. A cold draft swept over me, and I couldn't help coughing. Ethan clicked his tongue in reproach. "I told you it'd be cold on the train. Told you to bring an extra layer. But you never listen." Before he finished speaking, Lila appeared. She was wearing Ethan's jacket. It was too big on her, and Ethan reached over to adjust the drawstring at her waist. "Clara, there you are. We've been looking everywhere." Lila looked flustered, like she didn't know what to do with her hands. "Please don't fight with Ethan. Blame me, okay?" She bit her lip. "At work, we always show each other videos we think are good. I just got used to it. I forgot that was your seat." I hadn't said a single word, but she was already playing the victim. "Clara, I swear I only think of him as a brother. Don't get the wrong idea, please." I let out a cold laugh. "Wrong idea? How could I? You're wearing my boyfriend's jacket while you tell me how close you 2 are. I'm not blind. I can see what's going on. If you 2 care about each other this much, just date. I'd rather be the one who walks away with some dignity." Lila's eyes immediately welled up. She looked helplessly at Ethan. "Ethan, did I say something wrong again?" Ethan grabbed a tissue and handed it to her. But his eyes were locked on me. "Take it out on me if you're mad. Lila's just a kid. You don't have to be so cruel to her." With that, He took Lila's arm and led her back. When was the last time Ethan had stood up for me? I thought about it and came up empty. My phone pinged with a reminder, my seat assignment for the Savannah station to New York City leg. I glanced at it, and my stomach growled loudly. That's when I remembered the meal I'd ordered when I first got on was still at my old seat. When I walked back to Ethan's car, he was ordering food for Lila. She was pressed close to his arm, her finger scrolling across his phone screen. They looked like a sweet, new couple. "Can we get this one?" she asked softly. Ethan glanced down and shook his head. "Nope. You're too skinny. You need more protein. And your stomach's bad, remember? No iced soda." Lila pouted, playful and complaining. "I'm not a kid, you know." A friend nearby teased in a fake high voice, "Ethan, you're so attentive. I want you to order for me too." Ethan laughed and shot back, "Get lost." "Come on, don't play favorites," the friend bantered. "You only dote on Lila. What about the rest of us?" Lila's face flushed bright red. "Shut up. He's probably sick of me already." She paused, then added, "The other day when he was playing basketball, he asked me to watch his stuff. I was so clumsy I lost his ring. He said he'd never met anyone as dumb as me." I froze mid-step. 2 days ago, I'd noticed Ethan wasn't wearing our couple's ring. I'd asked him about it. He'd said it was inconvenient for basketball, that he'd left it on the nightstand. I'd believed him. Turns out Lila had lost it. And Ethan hadn't been mad at all. There'd been fondness in his voice, like he was teasing a puppy. "What am I supposed to do?" he'd said. "Stuck with a clumsy intern like you. Who am I gonna complain to?" Lila had hurried to say, "I'll pay you back when I get my paycheck next month." Ethan had just shaken his head. "Forget it. It's nothing." At that, I stepped right up to Ethan and picked up my meal box. "Sorry to interrupt. Just grabbing my food." Ethan's head snapped up. A flash of panic crossed his face. I'd barely turned around when there was a sharp crash behind me. Lila's cup had fallen off the tray table, shattering on the floor. Water spilled everywhere. Before I could react, she spoke up quickly. It's fine. Don't blame Clara. She didn't mean it." I said coldly, "What's that supposed to mean? I didn't even touch you." She looked at me, her jaw tight. The air turned awkward. She hesitated, then sighed softly. "It's okay. Let's just say it fell on its own." That cheap little attempt to frame me lit a spark of anger in my chest. "Lila, it's just a cup. If I knocked it over, I'd pay for it. But don't try to pin this on me when I didn't do anything." Tears pooled in Lila's eyes. "Fine. That cup was from when Ethan and I won the top project award. I know you don't like me, but it's just a cup." "Lila, Clara didn't mean it," Ethan said, stepping in to smooth things over. "I'll apologize for her." "I have nothing to apologize for." I lifted my chin and met his gaze. His face darkened. "Clara, what is your problem?" I looked at him, a bitter, tight smile tugging at my lips. "Ethan, do you really think I'm so jealous I'd throw a fit over a cup? Do you really think our matching ring matters less to me than a stupid cup?" Ethan's mouth moved, but no words came out. My phone started ringing in my bag. I glanced down and sighed softly. I walked all the way through the next car before I could steady my breathing. I swiped to answer. My mom's voice came through the speaker. "Clara? Your dad said you're not coming home this weekend?" The hiss of a pressure cooker rumbled in the background. I heard her fumble with it, and the high whistle settled into a steady chug-chug. I collected myself and said, "Mom, I got transferred at work last minute. I can't make it this holiday." My mom sounded disappointed. I already made the bourbon-glazed slow-roasted pork shoulder. "Ethan loves the skin, you love the meat." I cut it up just how you both like it. I froze for a few seconds, then said quietly, Mom, you don't have to make pork shoulder for Ethan anymore. We broke up. There was silence on the other end. After a long few seconds, I heard her ask, why so sudden? Clara, are you okay? I tried to keep my voice light. I'm fine. Actually, the decision to leave Ethan hadn't been sudden at all. Last month, I'd caught the flu on a business trip. I'd spiked a fever on the way back. Before boarding the plane, I'd texted Ethan, asking him to pick me up at the airport. He'd never replied. By the time we landed in Chicago, he still hadn't written back. I dragged my suitcase behind me, dizzy and disoriented. I called him a dozen times in a row. He didn't answer a single one. I leaned on my luggage, shaking so hard I could barely take another step. Someone bumped into me as they walked past, and the world tilted sideways. I thought I was going to hit the ground hard, when an arm slid around my waist and held me up. I forced my eyes open and met a pair of calm, steady eyes. Clara? You all right? He said my name softly, like he was afraid to startle me. It was Julian Voss. I didn't have time to think. The next thing I knew, my feet were off the ground. Julian had lifted me into his arms and carried me to the nearest hospital. A few hours later, I made it home. All the lights were off. Only the study made a sound. I pushed the door open and flipped on the light. Ethan jumped, turning around fast. He pulled off his headset and rubbed his eyes. You're back? I thought your flight was tomorrow. My eyes burned. Ethan, what were you doing? He stretched, long and lazy. Those guys were ganging up on Lila in game, messing with her cause she's new. I dropped 19 straight losses on M. Bet they're fuming right now. Feels damn good. Lila's voice came through the headset. Thanks, Ethan. You're the best. Go get some sleep, okay? Ethan laughed and logged off. That's when he noticed the missed calls on his phone. What's up? Why'd you call so many times? I shook my head and said nothing. All right, go to bed then, he said casually. If he'd looked at me for even 1 second, he would have seen the cotton ball taped to the back of my hand from the fore. But he didn't. I ripped the tape off and tossed it in the trash. Then I opened my work app and typed a reply to my boss. I've thought about it. I'll take the transfer to New York. That day, my relationship with Ethan died. Outside the window, the scenery blurred past. I sat back down in my seat. My phone pinged. A text from Julian popped up. Still coughing? What time do you get into New York? My finger hovered over the screen for a beat. I typed back, 3:32 p.m. He replied right away with a single got it. I opened my meal box and picked up a piece of potato with my chopsticks. Someone nearby turned on a video. Breaking: fast-rising tech firm Apex Innovations is reportedly closing in on a $400 million funding round, with major players in talks. Founder Julian Voss was recently spotted in New York. At the familiar name, I looked up on instinct. But the person turned the volume down, and I didn't catch the rest. Julian? That Julian Voss from our high school? Ethan set a cup of coffee down on my tray table, striking up a conversation like nothing was wrong. I played basketball against him once freshman year. He was nothing special. Don't know why all the girls used to fawn over him. I chewed my potato and said nothing. Ethan cleared his throat softly. Come on, don't be mad anymore. We're almost at Savannah Station. I got the cars all sorted for the trip to town. We're the hosts, everyone else is our guest. We should both be the bigger people, yeah? I set my chopsticks down. I never said I was hosting anyone. He took my willingness to talk as a sign I was backing down. Okay, it was my call to invite everyone. But you're my girlfriend. You can't just leave me hanging, can you? My voice was steady. Ex-girlfriend. Still mad? He smiled. Come on, you've been icing me out all trip. Enough already. Ask your mom if she made the pork shoulder. I told Lila all about it, said it's the best in Savannah. I looked up at him. She didn't. And she won't be making it anymore. He sighed, patient and indulgent. Tomorrow I'll send everyone off to the sights on their own. Just us. We can go walk around the old high school, yeah? Lila appeared out of nowhere, cutting in right away. Ethan, can I come too? I almost laughed. She really was like a fly you couldn't swat away. Ethan frowned. What for? I want to see where you went to school, she explained. I want to see what your youth was like. Ethan smiled a little. You didn't go there. Don't crash it, okay? Layla looked crushed. She stared at us for a long time without saying anything. Ethan tugged on my sleeve. You remember Jake, right? He took his wedding photos at our old high school. Maybe we could. The train announcement cut him off abruptly. Now approaching Savannah Station. Ethan, can we go back? My bag's really heavy. I can't carry it by myself, Lila said. Ethan nodded. You can handle your own luggage, right? Before I could answer, he added, I'm gonna go help Lila with hers. Meet me at the exit in a minute. He turned and walked back with Lila. Lila glanced over her shoulder at me, a small, smug smile on her lips. I watched them walk away, then pulled out my phone to double-check my seat number for the next leg. The train pulled into Savannah Station. I picked up my chopsticks, took a piece of beef, and chewed slowly. I wiped my mouth and closed the meal box. A black backpack dropped onto the seat beside me. Excuse me, this the 332 to Penn Station? There was amusement in his voice. I lifted my head slowly. It was Julian. Suddenly, there was a sharp thump-thump on the window beside me. I turned. Ethan was standing on the platform, frowning at us. He jabbed a finger toward the doors, signaling me to get off. The warning beeps blared. The doors slid shut. The train began to move forward. Ethan panicked. He ran a few steps, then stopped short. I didn't look at him. I just reached out and pushed the coffee cup aside. My phone rang. The second the train doors slid shut right in front of Ethan Hayes, the high, sharp beep drilled into his ears. Through the thick double-paned glass, he watched Clara Bennett lower her lashes. She reached out, one finger touching the cup of coffee he'd just bought her, and pushed it slowly toward the edge of the tray table. The motion was lazy, unhurried, and colder than anything he'd ever seen from her. Like she wasn't just pushing away a cup of coffee. The train started rolling. Ethan broke into a run on instinct. He ran a few yards, then slowed to a stop. A hot, restless anger coiled in his chest. Again, he muttered under his breath. As far as he was concerned, Clara was just throwing another tantrum, and this one had gone too far. She'd gotten mad before, sure. But all he'd ever had to do was meet her halfway, and she'd always come around. This time, she hadn't even gotten off the train with him. Ethan? Do you think Clara didn't hear the announcement? Lila tugged gently at his sleeve, her voice small and worried. Maybe we should call her? She can take the next train back from New York. Ethan ignored her. His eyes were glued to the train. It picked up speed. He caught one last glimpse of Clara. A man had sat down beside her. The man carried only a black backpack, his profile sharp and stern. He was leaning in slightly, saying something to her. Ethan's pupils shrank to pinpricks. He knew that guy. Julian Voss, the guy who'd always been one step ahead of him in high school, the guy who'd always gotten more attention from girls on the basketball court. What was he doing next to Clara? And why did the cold, distant look on Clara's face melt the second she looked at him. "Ethan?" Layla said again. "Everyone's staring at us." Ethan snapped back to it. A few of his buddies were wandering over with their bags, confused. "Dude, Clara didn't get off? What the hell's going on? We had everything planned in Savannah." Ethan's face burned. It felt like someone had slapped him in front of everyone. He pulled out his phone and called Clara over and over. She didn't answer. His fingers flew across the screen. "Clara, cut the crap. All our friends are here. You're making me look like an idiot. Get off at the next stop. Take a train back to Savannah. I'll meet you at the station. Not." The messages went unanswered. Not even a read receipt. He typed another one, trying to keep his patience. "Where are you right now? I'll buy you a ticket back. Still nothing. He could picture it so clearly, Clara sitting there, laughing and talking with Julian. The thought made him see red. The group walked toward the exit in silence. The upbeat vacation vibe had curdled into awkward, thick tension. Lila fussed over him the whole way, asking if he was thirsty, saying she never should have sat in Clara's seat. Ethan found her voice as annoying as a buzzing fly. "Just let me be quiet," he said coldly. Lila froze. Her eyes flooded with tears. She bit down hard on her lower lip and didn't dare say another word. No sooner had they stepped through the turnstiles than Ethan's phone blew up. It was his mom. "Ethan? Where are you kids? Mr. Bennett booked a boat tour the other day, said he'd take you both out on the water at night." Ethan's throat went tight. It took him a second to force the words out. "Mom, Clara's not with me. She went to New York." There was a long silence. Then his mom's voice shot up, shocked. "What did you say? You lost Clara?" Before Ethan could explain, a new message popped up at the top of his screen. It was from Clara's mom. Short and to the point. "Ethan, Clara told me. Since you two have split up, don't bother coming by the house this trip. It'll just be awkward for everyone. Ethan stared at the words, his breathing coming faster and faster. He realized then that Clara, the girl who'd always waited for him, no matter what, might have actually closed the door for good. I silenced Ethan's fifth call. As the screen went dark, the tight, heavy weight in my chest slowly lifted. I turned my head. Julian was sitting in the seat beside me. I stared at him for a full 2 seconds before I found my voice. "What are you doing here?" Savannah to New York wasn't a long ride, but the timing of him showing up was too perfect. Julian didn't answer right away. He held out his palm. A box of throat lozenges sat there. "That cough still hasn't gone away, has it? Your voice sounded a little rough earlier." I took the lozenges and looked up at him. His expression was calm. "I came to pick you up, actually." My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't write this off as a random coincidence anymore. "Pick me up?" I pressed. "You were waiting for me at Savannah Station?" Julian looked at me and smiled. He didn't look away. He just spoke plainly, honestly. "Yeah. And the day at the airport?" That wasn't a coincidence either. My hand went still. He was talking about last month, the day I'd come back from my business trip, burning up with fever, passing out at the airport. That day, I knew you were flying back to Chicago. I changed my own flight on purpose. Booked the same one as you. Julian's voice was soft, but it carried clearly over the hum of the train. "I was just gonna hang back, make sure you got off safe, watch you get in a car, then head to my hotel. But I didn't expect to find you at the exit, so feverish you could barely stand." He paused there, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his eyes. "Ethan didn't answer your calls, did he?" I went quiet. That day, I'd called that familiar number over and over, desperate. And Ethan had been in the study, playing games with Lila. Clara, if I hadn't been there that day, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life. I took a slow sip of water. The warm liquid slid down my throat, but it couldn't calm the storm of feeling rising in my chest. Even someone as oblivious as me could tell what he was saying. Outside the window, the landscape flew by. I stared at my faint reflection in the glass for a long moment, then spoke quietly. Julian, I just got out of an 8-year relationship. When I said the words 8 years, I'd thought I'd feel heartbroken, like I'd choke on them. But to my surprise, my chest was strangely calm. Julian looked at me for a couple of seconds. His gaze was deep, like he was trying to see straight through me, trying to tell if I was putting on a brave face, if I needed a shoulder to cry on. Then the corner of his mouth tugged up, just a little. It was an easy, unapologetic smile. Good, he said softly. I blinked, staring at him. Who says good when someone tells you they just broke up? He must have seen my surprise. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked on mine, and added. At least for me? It's the best thing that's happened in a really long time. That blunt, unguarded confession froze me to the spot. The air in the car felt thinner. I could feel my ears heating up fast. He didn't give me room to back down. There was amusement in his eyes. I'd never seen Julian like this. In my memory, he'd always been quiet, reserved. Almost cold, like he was untouchable. But right now, he was a completely different person. I floundered, trying to think of something to change the subject, when the train announcement cut in. Now approaching, Penn Station. Julian stood up. Before I could move, he'd stepped up to the overhead rack. He lifted my heavy suitcase down like it weighed nothing. You barely ate lunch, right? Let's get something to eat first when we get off. Sound good? He looked down at me, his voice warm, but there was no room to say no. I lifted my head and met those steady, calm eyes. This time, I didn't politely turn him down like I would have before. Okay, I said softly. Penn Station was packed with people. Julian naturally took my suitcase and walked ahead. I followed behind him, looking at his broad, straight back. For the first time in a long while, I felt light. He took me to a small, nice noodle shop tucked down a historic back alley. It was quiet, away from the noise. When 2 steaming bowls of soup noodles arrived, the steam blurred my vision. Before I could even pick up my chopsticks, Julian grabbed the serving chopsticks and carefully picked all the scallions and cilantro out of my bowl. I froze. My fingers hovered in mid-air, holding my chopsticks. He looked up and smiled at me through the thin veil of steam. I remembered you always picked those out back in high school. He said it casually, like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. But my nose stung, sudden and sharp. There really was someone out there who'd remembered a tiny, silly little habit of mine, one I'd almost forgotten about, for all these years. And in 8 years with Ethan? Every time I'd sat there picking scallions out of my food, he'd just say, "You're so high maintenance. Can't you just eat it?" Halfway through the meal, my mom's video call came in. My hand shook a little around my chopsticks. I hesitated. I didn't know how to explain this whole mess to her. Julian must have seen how tense I was. He set his chopsticks down and said quietly, "I'm gonna step out and take a call. Take your time." He left me to it. I took a deep breath and answered. The second the call connected, my mom's worried face filled the screen. "Clara? You in New York yet? You must be exhausted." She didn't scold me. She didn't even ask why I'd changed my plans last minute. I told her everything, about the fever, about the airport. I tried to keep my voice steady. I'd barely finished talking when my dad cut in from off-screen. His usual cheerful face was bright red with anger. His voice boomed through the speaker. "That Ethan Hayes is a real piece of work." My mom took the phone back, equal parts angry and heartbroken. "Clara, did Ethan bring that girl home with him?" Us old folks can see exactly what's going on. We were gonna be polite, save face for both families over the holiday. But if he can't respect boundaries, then good riddance. We don't need someone like that. She paused, her eyes glistening as she looked at me. Clara, take care of yourself out there. Our girl doesn't have to put up with that. After I hung up, I stirred my noodles around in the bowl, holding back tears. Julian came back and sat down. He didn't ask any questions. He just sat there with me, quiet. When we finished eating, he walked me to my hotel. After I checked in, I sank down onto the soft bed, wrapped in silence. My phone screen lit up. I tapped it on instinct, then froze. On my Instagram feed, a mutual friend of Ethan and mine had posted a photo. The caption read, "Night views on the water." So romantic. In the picture, Ethan and Lila were sitting side by side on an old stone bridge. Lila was leaning her head on his shoulder, grinning like she was on top of the world. They looked like a couple head over heels in love. I knew he'd posted it on purpose. Ethan just wanted me to see that he was fine without me, that there were plenty of people ready to take my place. I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I laughed. 8 years. I'd wasted 8 years of my life on someone this childish, someone who thought posting fake couple pics would get under my skin. I swiped past it without a second thought. My finger didn't even hesitate. Over the next few days, more and more photos popped up on my feed. Lila wiping sweat off Ethan's forehead on our old high school basketball court. The two of them standing side by side on a riverboat in Savannah, sunset blazing behind them. A few of Ethan's closer friends even posted full carousel posts, with captions like, "Some people go around in circles, and finally learn to appreciate what's right in front of them." Ethan really didn't know me at all. He thought jealousy, or anger, or screaming, that's what love looked like. But I was done. I wasn't gonna call him up and yell like I used to. When you finally let go, it happens in a single second. It was the last night of the holiday, late. My phone buzzed wildly on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a number I knew by heart. I hesitated, then answered. 2 in the morning. The phone buzzed again, this time with a video call from Ethan. I paused for 2 seconds, then hit accept and hit record at the same time. It wasn't Ethan on the screen. It was Lila. "Still up, Clara?" Lila was propped up against a pillow. She tilted the camera to the side. Ethan was passed out in the bed, face flushed, clearly wasted. But his hand was clamped tight around the hem of Lila's shirt. He was mumbling something unintelligible. "Look," Lila said. "He's so drunk. He won't let go of me." She smiled, lazy and smug. "You recognize this, right?" She held up a ring between her fingers. It was our 5-year anniversary band. The one Ethan had bought us. Lila twisted it around, playful. I wanted to see how much I really meant to him, you know? So I hid it that day. And guess what? He didn't even get mad. She leaned in closer to the camera, grinning. "Clara, he stopped caring about you a long time ago." She stared at me, triumphant, waiting for me to break. "Are you done?" I said calmly. Layla's smile faltered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Lila, you've got it backwards. I didn't lose to you. I just don't want him anymore. If you like picking up other people's trash that much, have fun. Hope you two are very happy together." "You," Layla's eyes flashed with rage. She opened her mouth to snap back. I didn't give her the chance. I ended the call. The next morning, I put on light makeup and showed up at the New York office building right on time. But the second I walked through the revolving glass doors, I saw a figure I knew all too well. Ethan's hair was messy. There were dark circles under his eyes. He was holding a paper bag of breakfast, looking worn out and miserable. When he saw me, the dullness in his eyes flared to life. He walked toward me fast, his voice rough and hoarse. "Clara. Can we talk? Please." I stopped and gave him a distant, polite smile. "There's nothing to talk about." The breakfast in his hand was still steaming. It was glazed donuts with black coffee from that old shop by the high school. Back when he was chasing me, he'd drive across town every morning just to wait in line for it. Years later, everything was different. I stood a few feet away, looking at that careful, eager look in his eyes, and all I felt was impatience. "Clara, this used to be your favorite," he said. He held the bag out a little, his voice soft. "Like if I just took the breakfast, we'd be those same two kids again, young and in love." I didn't take it. "Ethan, the only reason I liked it back then was because it was from you." I walked past him, swiped my badge, and stepped into the elevator without looking back. After that day, it was like he'd finally woken up from whatever stupid dream he'd been living in. He tried to win me back the only way he knew how, stubbornly, relentlessly. Breakfast waiting by the office door every morning. Roses delivered to the front desk every afternoon. Little trinkets I'd mentioned liking once, years ago. One day, he sent me a photo of himself at his first birthday keepsake ceremony. He was sitting on a red blanket, surrounded by little objects, and he'd grabbed none of them. He wrote, "Clara, my parents say I didn't reach for a single thing that day. I just sat there, and then I grabbed your hand. See? I picked you before I even knew how to walk." Once, a message like that would have melted me. I would have thought it was fate, romantic, perfect. But now? I read it and felt nothing. How dare he think a few grand gestures, a little trip down memory lane, could fix a crack that deep? The damage was done. There was no going back. I found a time to meet him at a cafe near the office. I wanted to end this, once and for all. Ethan got there early. He'd put on a clean shirt, trying to hide how run-down he looked. I sat across from him and got straight to the point. "Ethan, stop this. Please." He reached for my hand, desperate. "Clara, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have ignored how you felt. I won't talk to Lila about anything but work from now on, I swear." I pulled my hand back calmly, looked him in the eye, and said it slow. "I don't love you anymore." He went completely still. His mouth trembled. "That can't be right. 8 years. You can't just stop loving me." "Our relationship didn't die on that train," I cut in. "It died a little every time you took Lila's side over mine. Every time I was the one you left behind. It just ran out, slow." I took a breath and brought up the one thing I'd never wanted to say out loud. "Do you remember that day I came back from my business trip? I had a 102-degree fever. I called you a dozen times from the airport. You didn't answer once." Ethan's face went pale. He opened his mouth. "I didn't hear my phone that day, I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Right. You were too busy playing games with Lila to hear anything. Ethan, while you were celebrating 19 straight wins? I was in the ER, almost seizing from the fever. You never even knew. Did you?" All the color drained from Ethan's face in an instant. His fingers dug into the marble tabletop, his knuckles white. He finally understood. All those little things he'd brushed off as nothing had hurt me worse than he could ever imagine. The worst part of regret isn't the breakup itself. It's realizing you weren't there when the person you loved needed you most. "Clara, He tried to explain, to apologize, but his throat was too tight. No words would come out. "We're done, Ethan. For good." I sent him the screen recording of the video call, proof of everything Lila had said and done, all her games and manipulation. Ethan stared at his phone, confused, and tapped play. I stood up and walked out of the cafe. The early summer wind was warm on my face. Later, I heard Ethan went back to Chicago and blew up at the office. He fired Lila, threw all her stuff out, and threatened to press charges for theft. Lila cried and begged, but he wouldn't even look at her. When a friend told me about it, I didn't ask a single question. Trash is trash. I don't care how loud it makes when it hits the can. Sometime later, the company hosted a gala at a Skyline restaurant in Midtown Manhattan. Julian was invited too. I put on a sleek, tailored off-the-shoulder gown and wove my way through the crowd of glasses and suits. Julian was easily the center of attention. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a black suit making him look cool and polished. He was talking to a few industry big names, relaxed and confident, every inch the CEO. I started walking over to say hello. But then I saw a woman, striking, sharp-featured, walk straight up to him with a glass of wine. She rested her hand lightly on his arm, leaned in, and murmured something in his ear. I slowed down. My heart gave a strange, little flutter. She carried herself like she owned the room. Standing there in front of him, swirling her wine glass, her interest was impossible to miss. Most men would have eaten up the attention. But Julian didn't. He stepped back, just half a step, so small you'd barely notice, but enough to make her face fall. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low but clear. "I'm currently pursuing someone seriously. I don't feel comfortable giving you my number. I hope you understand." The woman froze. She clearly hadn't expected to be turned down that bluntly. A few people nearby overheard. Someone joked, "Julian? You pursuing someone? Come on, who is it?" Everyone expected him to laugh it off, to deflect. But Julian just smiled. He lifted his gaze, cut straight through the crowd, and landed on me. For a second, the room went quiet. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, curious and envious. My fingers tightened around my wine glass. And Julian just kept looking at me, steady and open, not looking away for even a second. By the time the gala ended, the moon was full and bright outside. I'd just stepped down the front stairs when Julian caught up to me. He had his suit jacket slung over one arm, walking beside me. "Did that bother you?" he asked quietly. I stopped and turned to look at him. His features were soft under the street lamp, nothing like the sharp, intimidating man he'd been at the table. "Not really," I said, smiling. "Actually, it was kind of nice. There's nothing like being chosen out loud, unapologetically. It beats any sweet line in the world. If you like someone, that's how it should be. Open. Honest. You put all your favoritism right out in the open. You don't make the other person guess, or wonder, or waste away in ambiguity." We walked slowly down the street. I couldn't help but ask, "Julian, when did you start liking me?" I'd imagined 100 answers, but I'd never been able to figure it out. Julian was quiet for a few seconds. A faint, nostalgic smile tugged at his lips. "Senior year of high school, actually." I blinked. Senior year? I'd barely spoken to him back then. That day the power went out at school, they sent everyone home early from study hall. "You remember?" He spoke slowly, pulling those old, forgotten memories out into the light. The hallway was chaos. Everyone was rushing for the doors. Someone knocked over an easel by the window. A bunch of charcoal drawings fell on the floor. It was dark, no one stopped. I was walking by, and I saw you. You were crouched down, using the light from your phone screen to pick them all up. You even picked up mine, the one that got stepped on, and tucked it back in the sketchbook, smooth as you could. He turned to look at me, his eyes soft. You did it so fast, then you just left. I never even got to say thank you. My mouth went a little dry. I had a vague, hazy memory of that night. I'd just felt bad for the drawings. It had been nothing, a split-second choice I'd forgotten about instantly. I could never have imagined someone would hold on to that tiny, trivial moment for all these years. So none of the coincidences were really coincidences, were they? Nope. His answer was steady. I kept it quiet for a really long time. I just waited until I had a good reason to walk up to you. Something soft and warm bumped against my chest, gentle but sure. All those years I'd spent making myself small for someone who didn't deserve me. All those times I'd felt like an afterthought. There had been someone, all along, tucking me away carefully in his heart. I really did deserve to be loved like this, quietly, steadily, completely. I stopped walking and looked at him, smiling softly. Julian, you want to know my answer? He blinked, clearly caught off guard by how direct I was being. He leaned in slowly, his mouth close to my ear. His warm breath brushed my neck, light and clean. Only if it's the answer I want. Otherwise, I don't want to hear it. His voice was low and rough, just a little teasing, just a little possessive. I didn't pull away. I reached up and slipped my hand through his arm. Be my boyfriend, Julian. The night was deep all around us. The neon lights of Midtown stretched out behind us like a glowing sea. I walked with him, our steps matching, steady and even. The wind was soft. And so was my heart. Some people will walk through the dark, just to find you.